Good evening and welcome to this October 24th, 2022 meeting of the Village of Bluff Board of Trustees. Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Fisher?
Here.
Trustee Hatch?
Here.
Trustee Marquis?
Here.
Trustee Rappin?
Here.
Trustee Ryder?
Here.
Thank you. And I would like also to add and state that a notice was received by a member of the board in accordance with village policy, and Trustee Barbara Ankerman will be deemed authorized to attend this meeting electronically unless a motion objecting to this member electronic attendance is made, seconded and approved by 2/3 of the members of a public body physically present at the meeting. If no such motion is made, then Trustee Ankerman's request to attend the meeting electronically shall be deemed approved. And I see no motion, so we have also Trustee Ankerman with us tonight. Next, thank you. Next is our Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand and join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Next is item number 3, the consideration of the minutes of the October 10th, 2022 Village Board meeting. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Thank you. Thank you. Are there any changes?
Could be a voice vote.
Thank you. Should we do a roll call or a voice vote?
Voice vote.
Voice vote.
No choice.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. Thank you very much. Aye, aye, aye.
You've been gone. Sorry.
Gentlemen, next is item number 4, the non-agenda items and visitors. The village president and board of trustees allocate 15 minutes during this item for those individuals who would like the opportunity to address the village board of trustees on any matter not listed on the agenda. Each person addressing the village board of trustees is asked to limit their comments to a maximum of 5 minutes. It doesn't seem we have anybody in the room here physically. What about online?
No, sir.
Thank you. I say we move forward. Next item is item number 5. The village board sets the order of a meeting. The village president and board of trustees will entertain requests from anyone present on the order of business to be conducted during the village board meeting. No request as well. Moving forward, thank you very much. Next item is item number 6, our village finance report. With first our warrant report for October 11th to October 24th, 2022. The warrant would be for expenditure of village funds for payment of invoices in the amount of $206,818.06 for October 11th to October 24th, 2022. To this warrant report is stated that the invoice register report shows checks with a status of open or paid. All checks with a status of open are computer-generated checks for the board's final approval. Checks with a status of paid are manual checks processed. Are there any questions on the board to Mrs. O'Connell about that?
I show you a picture number. This is great.
I wonder what that is.
Or, you know,
Got it.
Thank you. Are there any questions to Finance Director O'Connell for our warrants report tonight? And I see none. And it is this is a roll call. Clerk?
Trustee Ankerman?
Aye.
Trustee Fisher?
Aye.
Trustee Hatch?
Aye.
Trustee Marquis?
Aye.
Trustee Rappin?
Aye.
And Trustee Ryder?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you very much. Item 6B is our September 2022 finance report. Finance Director O'Connell.
Good evening. Of note, the monthly sales tax revenue on a cash basis for September fiscal year '23 is $332,651, which is $67,820, or 17% less than the fiscal year '22 cash basis receipts. However, it's still 10.7% greater than the pre-COVID receipts from September of fiscal year '20. Building permit revenue for fiscal year '23 to date is $350,335, $150,235 greater than the same reporting period for last fiscal year. General fund fiscal year '23 total revenues of $7,298,100 are $611,841 greater than the fiscal year '22 year-to-date revenues. Fiscal year '23 current expenditures are consistent with or less than budgeted. For the total general fund, the fiscal year-to-date expenditures of $520,027 are $247,304 greater than the expenditures for the same period of fiscal year '22.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I should have asked for a motion for this item first.
Motion to approve.
A motion to approve, to accept
Accept the report. Yeah.
to accept this report.
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Are there questions to Bettina about this report? I hear none. This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
And just to be clear on the warrant, I didn't have a motion or a second for the warrant either. Did I miss that?
Well, let's do it.
All right, so could I please have a motion to approve the warrant report?
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Second.
Previous
We had
roll
a-
call vote will apply.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Sorry about that. So both motions to 6A and 6B carry. Next would be our item 7, the village administrator's report. And that would be about our Central Lake County Joint Action Water Agency.
Tonight with us is Bill Susi. He is the Executive Director of CLC Jawa, has been there since 1994. We learned early this evening. I've asked him to come in to give an update to the village board, really just a general overview about the water plant's operations. Village President Charlot is the primary representative for that body there, and Trustee Fisher is his alternate when he can't attend that meeting. There is an executive committee, kind of like a technical committee, and Jeff Hansen serves on that to advise those boards of directors. And usually Bill comes in when they're talking about a major initiative, maybe disrupting the village. This is not that situation, but we're going to give him a chance to brag a little bit about the water agency and talk a little bit about Forever Chemicals.
All right, thank you very much. You have the,
Let me see if I can continue to walk and chew gum at the same time here.
so my name is Bill Susi. I'm the Executive Director at Central Lake County Joint Action Water Agency, which I'll refer to as JAWA for short going forward. Thanks for inviting me to speak. This evening, I'm going to spend about 15 minutes talking about who we are, and secondly, about perfluoroalkyl chemicals, also known as Forever Chemicals. So the first thing I'll talk about is we have 3 primary facilities, and 2 of the largest facilities are in Lake Bluff. We have the water treatment plant that's at 200 Rockland Road, and we also have a raw water pump station, which is located at the end of Blodgett on the Bluff. Something interesting about that is that building, George Russell, the former village engineer, told me it's the tallest elevator in the village of Lake Bluff. Goes down about 6 stories. And at the bottom floor of that facility, that sits on top of a 25-foot deep tank of water. So water flows in there, and we pump from our raw water pump station to our water treatment plant on 200 Rockland.
And
We
how
also
how
have-
far is the intake out in the water?
The intake is 3,000 feet out in the lake, and it is 26 feet deep. So here, in this picture here, it shows the pumping station. The intake is right off the shore. It passes below the lake bed, below the beach, in beneath the pumping station itself, and then feeds into that pump station. From the pump station, we then pump the water west down Blodgett Avenue. We go to- Do I have control of this, Drew?
I'm doing it.
Okay, next. Go ahead and skip that slide. And the water then continues underneath along Rockland Road. It crosses actually the watershed boundary between the Great Lakes and the Gulf of Mexico at Green Bay. It hits our water treatment facility, and then from there, we deliver the water right across the street to Lake Bluff.
Sorry.
If you could go back to the previous, next slide, please. Thank you. So in 1981, then Mayor of Libertyville, Paul Neal, called all the Lake County leaders to discuss getting water for inland communities in Lake County. And Lake Bluff sent a very large contingent. Fast forward to 1989, and your board bulletin announced the construction of Jawa's water supply system within the village boundaries. The village president and Jawa chairman at the time, David Graff, began the construction effort at the groundbreaking ceremony at what was to become the county's largest water treatment facility. At the water plant, we measure success hundreds of different ways that I get excited about. Most other people don't. But the folks appreciate this one metric that we have, and that is that you are paying less today for your water than you did in 1989 purchasing it from Lake Forest. So I think it was a successful venture. On this slide, what I'm showing is the amount of water that we wholesale to our member communities since 1992 when we began. The white numbers are the billions of gallons per year that we deliver. The blue bars are our original charter members, of which you are one of the original 9 charter members. And the red bars are our newest members' water demand. Because of the use of water-saving devices and water conservation measures that were not anticipated in the 1980s, since about 2005, we've seen a declining water demand from all of our members. And that means that the water treatment plant quite simply can make a little bit more water than you need today or will need in the future. And because our board seeks to keep their water rates low, they decided to allow new members to join Jawa. That has increased sales, as you can see in the red lines, and mitigated some of those losses that were never anticipated with increasing water conservation and use of water conserving devices. Now, the new members that joined us, there are 4 new members, so you understand, they paid for all the construction costs, all the engineering, so you paid for none of that. They increase our water sales using about the same amount of staff, same building, so we're getting more revenues with about the same expenses. And in addition to that, because they joined us late in the game, our board said you need to pay us some capital buy-in fees, more popularly called connection fees. And they paid us and are paying for the next 30 years, $52 million in connection fees. The board has designated those to pay for capital replacements, which we're hitting 30 years, we're starting to replace that equipment. So that's money that'll help to keep the water rates down. Next slide, please. So this is a map of Lake County, and basically what you can see on this map, the light gray areas are the areas that we serve. There's 105 square miles of area we serve, 265,000 people, and we serve about 20 million gallons per day. Next slide. We have a unique and advanced treatment process. It's like no other in the region. For a while, there was only 2 others in the world like it. What makes it unique is our use of ozone, carbon filtration, and ultraviolet light disinfection. Most bottled water companies don't even use these technologies, and we invite everyone to come on in and tour. We've toured over 1,300 Lake Forest High School kids, Woodlands Academy, all the local high schools and regional universities, so you're always welcome to come on in. Can you skip that slide for me? Thank you. So now let's turn our discussion to PFAs, or forever chemicals. Next slide, please. So PFAs are compounds that are in a growing list of products that for several decades have been used and demanded by consumers because of their very desirable properties. So PFAs are what make Teflon nonstick, and we all like our Teflon pans. Water-resistant and grease-resistant clothing. Virtually all fast food wrappers have PFAs in them. Firefighting foams, I'm saying because the chief's not here. Stain resistance, pesticides, cosmetics, and personal care products. Now, in the early 2000s, scientists began to detect these compounds in the environment, in wild animals, and in people. And in fact, today and then, research by the CDC shows that 99% of US citizens have these compounds in their blood. Next slide, please. If we look at the PFAS cycle, we see that PFAs enter water through firefighting foams, which are used on very much around refineries, airports, and military bases. They're also in wastewater discharge, and unfortunately, when they're removed in wastewater, they're collected in biosolids and spread on agricultural fields. So we now find them on agricultural fields around the country, and some ag fields are now unable to produce anything because of the levels. PFAs are measured nearly worldwide. In rainwater, they currently exceed the brand new interim health advisory level. And that's in rainwater in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, in Antarctica snow, and in the Tibetan Plateau. They are everywhere. They're 14 times higher in precipitation than they are for the health advisory. There are thousands of PFAs, but what I'm going to focus on here are the two most prevalent. They're called PFOA and PFOS. In 2009, the US EPA first established a health advisory for these compounds. A health advisory is not a regulation. A regulation is established by the US EPA when they completely understand the health effects and after they've done an economic analysis of what the impact of the regulation will be. These are health advisories. They're simply the level below which the US EPA believes the compound will have no human health impact. In this chart, we have been monitoring for PFAs at our water treatment plant before anyone else in water treatment and publishing those on our website. The green line, which looks like the horizontal axis, is the level that we detect. It is a little over 2 parts per trillion. In 2009, the health advisory for PFOA in blue was 400. For PFOS was 200. You can see we're far below that. Up until recently, starting in 2016, the health advisory level was 70. Again, we were at 2. The drinking water community was, I can say, without exaggeration, completely shocked in July when the US EPA lowered the health advisory by more than 17,000 times for PFOA and 3,000 times for PFOS. In short, what does it mean? It means all Great Lakes water plants exceed the health advisory. And likely, most surface waters in our country and much of the world will also exceed the US EPA's health advisory. We don't know yet because we are unable to measure below 2 parts per trillion. And the level that they have established is 4 parts per quadrillion. So it's far below any ability we have to detect right now. A legal drinking water regulation for these compounds is expected later this year. Next slide, please. This is a table that we've published on our website that shows the level of some PFAs that we detect in our water. On the top row is PFOA. We detect an average of 2.4 parts per trillion. We detect that 50% of the time. The Illinois Health Advisory level is 2, and the new US EPA level is 0.004. For PFOS, an average of 2.3, we detect it 79% of the time. We're below the Illinois Health Advisory, but we're above the US EPA Health Advisory. And a new one, there's literally thousands and thousands of these compounds, and we're just learning how to detect them within the scientific community. I say we because I'm a chemist. But we do detect this last compound more recently, and we're detecting that 27% of the time. This information is available on our website. So a question that you might ask is, we're exposed to PFAS in air, in food, in fabric, cosmetics, and things like that. Well, how much of our exposure is from drinking water? The US EPA estimates that 20% of a person's exposure comes from drinking water when the water contains 70 parts per trillion. Our water contains about 2.5 parts per trillion. So our levels are 35 times lower than that, and I think we can conclude that compared to all the other ways we're exposed in air, dust, food, water, cosmetics, and clothing, that our exposures from drinking water are quite small. Because the health advisory is so incredibly low relative to our ability to detect it, there is no product, there is no treatment system, there is no bottled water, and there is no person that can demonstrate compliance with health advisory. We simply can't measure that low. If regulations are set below their current level, I want you to know that our board is very interested in always meeting drinking water regulations. We always have. So we will meet the new drinking water regulations. There are technologies available to remove PFAS. We don't know if they can remove it to that low since we're not able to measure it. They would cost our agency between $10 and $100 million for just our facility. And you might wonder, in a year, if we treat 7.5 billion gallons of water, exactly how much PFAS would you remove from the water? The answer to that is 1/4 of 1 pound. So what are we trying to do to address the issue? We continue our testing. We're expanding it as testing becomes available. We're doing things like this, publishing the information on our website. We monitor the literature, and we participate in regulatory conversations to try to, drive that conversation, and we support research efforts. Next slide, please. You can visit our website. There's a pink banner across the top. That'll take you right to our PFAS information sheet. Next slide. And that sheet looks something like this. I have a very talented staff. They try to make it reader-friendly so people can learn about it and be aware of the issue. And next slide. I didn't want to leave here with, I wanted to share some good news with you. So this slide shows, this is from the CDC. You don't have to see the units to understand what's happening. On the left side is the concentration of PFAS in the blood of American citizens. Across the bottom are years. The top green line is the level of PFOS. It's been declining in Americans' blood since 1999 till 2018 when this ends. That's an 85% reduction because it's largely not manufactured. And the blue line, the next line down, is PFOA. It's reduced by about 70% since 1999. So while we don't see the levels changing in Lake Michigan since 2008, they're not going up, they're not going down, they're staying steady. We are seeing a reduction in people. And could you click twice, Drew? Thank you. I welcome anyone who would like to come in and talk to me personally about this or visit the plant and see how it works to come on in, and we're happy to show off our plant.
I have a question for you, Bill.
Yes, sir.
So first of all, thank you very much for being here and giving us this report. This is important. and to our community and to our residents for our health, global health. My question to you is, you're saying that we cannot monitor, we can filter today at 2.7, but we can't measure at 0.004, I believe is what you said. But you never talked about the filtering aspect. Even though you might not be able to measure, you might have technologies today, filtering technologies that might be able to filter that. Is this the case, or is this still in research as well?
No, we do know that we can measure down to about 1.5 parts per trillion. So, and there's many communities who are spending a lot of money to remove very high levels in their well water or their surface water, but they're spending tens of $millions to reduce it less than 70, because that was the standard until July. And now all this money they're spending, they're very excited to get it down to 60, and now the new level is 0.004. This is why I say we're kind of in a time of flux here until the new regulations come out so we know what the target is and our ability to measure to it. It's really hard to take any action.
But what you're saying is our current level is 2.7 parts per trillion.
Yes,
So you achieve that with multiple different type of strategies to remove that from the water. Can you improve that?
that's a great question. So what I didn't show here is the level that comes into the water plant and the level that leaves the water plant. The numbers are identical. So this is what we like to call a recalcitrant compound. It comes in and it goes out in our treatment process completely unchanged. So the processes that are used to do this are very expensive processes. They're usually used in more of an industrial application. But yeah, that's the case. There's nothing we can do to improve the removal, to answer your question.
Thank you.
Yes.
I just have a question on, and I don't even know if you would know this, but how the new numbers were derived by the agency. Like, they seem, especially because it sounds like it's going to be quite a challenge for most water, well, especially for Jawa, to come up with those numbers to meet those standards.
Yeah, so what the USEP does is they look at the health data and research around the country and around the world, actually. And when they set a health advisory, this is like an ideal goal where they know there will be no health impact. So where did they get 0.004? There was a research study done of children in Greenland, and they were looking for the level of certain chemicals in their blood. Think, Greenland's far away from everything. So let's see if they have anything in their blood. And they stumbled across PFAs, and they found them in their blood. And they did some research, and they found that the reason it's set so low compared to what it used to be is because there was an impact on the ability of children, based on their research, to produce antibodies to certain vaccines. I will add, this is pre-COVID. So just their immune response seemed to be somewhat subdued because of the level of PFAs in their blood, and that's how they determined a 0.004. That research has been peer-reviewed, but it hasn't been repeatedly peer-reviewed. But that's where they're basing it.
And if we can't reach those numbers, which it sounds like it would be a stretch, does Jawa get fined, or is there some sort of is there a repercussion for that?
There would be, but I'm a scientist, so I don't like to speculate, but I'm going to speculate. It's virtually impossible for them to set a regulation at that low level because there's no way they could enforce it since we can't even measure it. So our best guess now is the regulation will be around 4 parts per trillion, of which we would be half. And if it is something measurable, then our board would consider how they would remove it, what the cost would be. And yes, if you don't meet a regulatory limit, there's fines. And of course, people don't want their water to be in violation of a regulation. But I would imagine they would also have an extended period that you would phase in, because it's simply on a national level, this would be the most unprecedented, really the most unprecedented thing ever.
Thanks.
Yep.
Thank you. Are there any other questions on the board?
I just want to encourage everybody to take up Executive Director Susie's offer to go visit. I've had the pleasure of taking a tour. It was an incredible experience for me. I really learned so much about our system and have such a greater respect for what CLC Jawa does. The staff is amazing, Bill's team is amazing, Bill is amazing, and the water tastes delicious coming straight out of the pipe. Go have the tour and taste the water with Bill. It makes you really proud for the work that we're doing right here in Lake Bluff.
And we're also so appreciative of what the previous boards put together and built for us. It is a absolute treat to operate that plant. We like to say that we've been given a Ferrari, so we love to drive it and we like to take care of it.
So thank you, and I do relate to your comments. When I do appreciate the water, we drink in Lake Bluff when I drink other communities' water. I'm a runner, and I drink water all the time, and our water is amazing, so thank you very much. And thank you for this report. Yep. And it will be with you on this Wednesday. Thank you.
That's all my report.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Bill.
Next item is item number 8, our village attorney's report. Mr. Friedman,
No report, other, it's good to be back.
thank you very much.
Have you?
and welcome back.
Thanks.
Next would be my report, the village president's report, item number 9. And before going to the item 9A, that would be the appointment of Mr. Deegan to the ABR, I would like to give also a shoot out to Ghost Walk. And I was part of that. I was given a small part, and I was included as part because I'm here on this board. It was amazing. So, and I tried to understand the magnitude of this project, and I was absolutely blown away by what it meant to our community and the amount of work and the number of people and the number of people participating, volunteers, and the people being part of the event. And so, first of all, we owe this event to the History Museum and dedicated members, so namely Kathy McKegney as our very fearless leader, and Craig Moreland. So Kathy and Craig wrote the script, by the way. I would like to say that very highly. And also, of course, to Kathy O'Hara, who is the fearless leader for the museum, for the History Museum. I would also like to say that the event drew resources from all parts of our community, including the many volunteers, many of the businesses in town. I would like to say also, I mean, everything happens in our businesses in town. Our police department, who did a fine video, thank you very much. And our village hall and many other locations in town. Looking at the bill, the play bill, I counted 130 volunteers. Okay, one more time, 130 volunteers. It's amazing. Now, I talked to Kathy today. 860 people basically walked through the skits, okay, in a total of 27 performances in about 6 hours. Okay, that was a factory. It was funny as hell. 27 performances. So I would like to say that it is such an example of event that brings our community together, and I wrote that because I think this is important, that makes us Lake Bluff. I often hear Lake Bluff is quite a unique community. This past weekend was a stellar example of what it is to be Lake Bluff. We owe a debt of gratitude to Kathy McKegney, to Craig Moreland, and of course to Kathy O'Hara, to instill smiles, light-heartedness in our village after this weekend. It is important. It is who we are. So thank you very much.
No, one of the funny comments I heard, somebody was coming through and complimented, they saw the scene that President Charlot was in, and said, you know, he was really, that French accent sounded legitimate.
You're really good.
That's right.
Typecast, maybe.
Regis, my daughter was in the Rainbow Room.
I knew that.
And she was very proud to report that she saw you. So
That-
she felt like very special that you participated, and so,
Was that Floatstone, that skit?
yes.
That was cool.
But what is cool is this is 15% of our population walk through the skids. Okay, 150 people, 130 people came together to work, to practice, to do these things with a big smile and just having fun and having a blast doing it. I mean, where else do you see that? I know just a couple communities in the US doing that. It's amazing. So, and everybody worked on that together. Village Hall, Police Department. I mean, your video still cracks me up, Matt. So. I still have to see it, so. I have it on my computer. But it was brilliant. So Kathy and Mike Cagney and Kathy O'Hara and Craig Moreland, thank you again, because Kathy Mike Cagney was tired yesterday and today, and I talked to her today actually. So moving on. Thank you. Item 9A is the appointment to various advisory board and commissions for Edward Deegan to the Architecture Board of Review. Could I please have a motion to approve this appointment?
So moved.
Second?
Second?
No voice vote if you want.
Okay. Subject to the consent of the Board of Trustees, the village president appoints members to the village's various advisory boards and commissions. Village President Charlot recommends the appointment of Edward Deegan to fill a vacancy on the Architecture Board of Review. If approved, Mr. Deegan's terms will expire on April 30, 2023. To this, I would like to say that we feel very lucky to have him back on our board. Ed was part of our board a few months ago and left our board for personal reason to pursue other business interests out of town and came back to this town. And I feel lucky we have him back on his board, given that I believe he's absolutely gifted for what he does as an architect and what he does for our town. Are there any questions? It is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. Thank you very much. Welcome back to Ed, to our board, to our advisory boards. Next item is item 11, item 10, an acceptance of correspondence. Please note that all correspondence was delivered to the Village Board of Trustees in the informational reports on October 7th and 14th, 2022. Is there a motion to approve, accept the correspondence?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Any questions? It's a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. Thank you very much. Next item is item number 11. That is an ordinance revising licensing regulations for scavengers and the village's municipal waste regulation. Is there a motion to approve this ordinance?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. In July 2021, the village comprehensively amended its regulation concerning the licensing of waste haulers and the collections of waste within the village. The amendments implemented the village's exclusive franchise for commercial waste hauling, which is effective this month. The village commercial and residential franchise agreements contemplate that the village franchisees, Groot, for example, or others, may provide, non-exclusively, different types of temporary or specialized services, such as move-in and move-out services, the disposal of hazardous wastes, or the recycling of construction and demolition debris. However, the revised licensing regulations are not clear as to how haulers providing this type of services within the village should be treated. The attached ordinance simply clarifies the village's past practice of not requiring waste haulers to obtain a license when a hauler is only providing this type of services. Are there any questions to Drew on this matter? Or Jeff?
I had a question, if I may.
Absolutely.
So when we have someone who performs, let's say, a move out haul away or a construction haul away, what level of assurance do we have that the materials that leave Lake Bluff are disposed of in a responsible way?
Well, I would say that they are, they're held to the state regulations with regards to disposal of materials. But the truth is, we don't follow that. The village has never followed that. And there are some towns that have tried to do so, very frustratingly so, because there's so many outfits that come and go that provide roll-off service, or even like Waste Management will accept, they'll deliver a small like nylon bag to your house. And but there's plenty of people in this marketplace, and it's something it's just a nightmare to try to track, and I don't think the village has ever done it. But we can't say for certain how the materials were handled. So, I mean, to the extent that
I guess my question was then, as a homeowner, what is it a best practice for them to do so that we can have that comfort level, knowing that you could be calling really any place, and it's difficult to kind of research each and every one.
Yeah, I don't know that there's a clearinghouse for that type of, finding if there's, somebody that has a blue ribbon award for, managing waste, or finding out. I guess one could call the IEPA and find out if anybody has been penalized or, cited. But I don't think there's a clearinghouse like there is for like the Citizens Utility Board to review various utility providers for their quality of service. So I'm not aware of anything like that.
So what we're doing today isn't really, it's just
Codifying.
memorializing, yeah, what is currently being done. It's
And
not.
what has always been done in the town. Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions on this? No, so this is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion to this ordinance carries.
It's first reading.
First reading. Yes. Next item is item number 12, a second reading of an ordinance comprehensively amending the village planned residential development regulation. Is there a motion to approve this ordinance, please?
So moved.
Thank you. This is the first of two board items related to the comprehensive amendment of the village's planned residential development regulations. The village board determined in September 2020 that, in advance of future developments, it would be in the best interest of the village to undertake a review of the PRD regulations and the underlying zoning districts in which planned residential development may be located, in order to determine whether and to what extent these regulations should be revised, updated, or replaced. Following a competitive request for proposals, the village selected Tesca Associates as a professional planning consultant to facilitate the review with village staff. The project team reviewed the 50-plus year legislative history of the village PRD regulation and PRD development, interviewed village staff and key stakeholders, including village residents and members of the development community, and facilitated 5 joint workshops of the village board and the PCZBA to review its finding and present a draft of the revised PRD regulations. The result of this review process is the attached new set of PRD regulations, and the final step to complete the review is to adopt the revisions. Compared to the existing regulations, the revised regulations create a modern plan development tool that gives the village a high level of control through a coordinated review process that is tailored to Lake Bluff and the outcomes it desires from new residential developments, including the creation of additional types of housing and public benefits for the community. The attached staff memorandum and presentation by the village consultant provides additional information on the new PRD tools. As its September 21st, 2022 meeting, the PCBA conducted a public hearing and unanimously recommended that the village board adopt the attached ordinance. The village board approved first reading of the ordinance at its October 10th meeting. And I do not believe that we have Michael Blue today with us, correct?
That is correct.
And this is a second vote on this.
Correct. Second and final vote.
Second and final vote, I would like to say.
So, Drew, I assume you would tell us if there was any community input over the past 2 weeks?
The village has received none.
Are there any questions on this board?
We've covered this one.
Quite thoroughly.
This is good. So it is a roll call. Clerk, please call the roll.
There is somebody now attending, the person attending the meeting virtually. If there's any comments or the person wishes to be heard on this item, please raise your hand and you'll be recognized. Doesn't appear that they have their hand raised. All right.
Okay, so thank you very much.
Roll call, you called, yes.
This is a roll call.
Trustee Fisher.
Aye.
Trustee Hatch.
Aye.
Trustee Markey.
Aye.
Trustee Rappin.
Aye.
Trustee Ryder.
Aye.
And Trustee Ankerman.
Aye.
Motion carries.
And this motion carries. Thank you. Next item is item number 13, an ordinance amending the comprehensive plan of the village of Lake Bluff to reflect updates to the village's plan residential development regulations. Is there a motion to approve this ordinance?
So moved.
A second?
Second?
Thank you. This is the second of two board items related to the comprehensive amendment of the village's planned residential development regulations. In connection with the adoption of the village's new planned residential development regulations, staff recommended the PCZBA consider amending the village comprehensive plan. As described in the attached staff memorandum to the PCZBA, the amendments would reflect the intended operation of a village new PRD tool, including its reliance on rezoning as a component of a PRD process for developments that propose increased residential density, incorporate important planning principles reached through the Stonebridge plan development process into the plan. After the termination of a Stonebridge PRD, these principles are no longer represented in the village official land use policy documents. And number 3, acknowledge the completion of other residential development contemplated by the plan since the plan was adopted in 1997. At its September 21st, 2022 meeting, the PCZBA conducted a public hearing and unanimously recommended that the village board amend the comprehensive plan as shown in the attached ordinance. The village board approved first reading of the ordinance at its October 10th meeting. And that will be a second reading and final reading of this ordinance. Are there any questions? Do we have questions online any comments online for this ordinance?
No one is raising their hand.
Thank you. So this is a roll call vote. Clerk?
Trustee Hatch.
Aye.
Trustee Markey.
Aye.
Trustee Rappin.
Aye.
Trustee Ryder.
Aye.
Trustee Ankerman.
Aye.
And Trustee Fisher.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Motion carries. Item number 14, a resolution authorizing the purchase and service agreement with Axon Enterprises, Inc. for body-worn cameras, the BWS, mobile video systems, MVS, and digital evidence management software, DEMS. Is there a motion to approve this resolution?
So. Motion. Second.
Thank you. In accordance with Public Act 101-0652, also known as the Safety, Accountability, Fairness, and Equity Today Act, Lake Bluff Police must have officer-worn body cameras implemented by January 1st, 2025. To comply, Police Department staff are recommending the purchase of a complete Axon Enterprise Incorporated system that includes 15 body-worn cameras, 5 squad mobile video systems, and a cloud-based digital evidence management software storage solution. The Action system partners with a Police Department current Axon tasers to store, manage, retrieve, and share captured digital evidence seamlessly with the Lake County State Attorney's Office and the Village Prosecutor's Office through a digital cloud link. Consistent with the village purchasing policy, staff recommends this purchase be made through Sourcewell, a cooperative purchasing program based in Minnesota, of which the village is a member. Pricing for the Axon system is based on a 5-year program at a cost not to exceed $35,000 per year, which is consistent with the total budget amount in the current 2-year fiscal plan, $45,000 in 2023 and $25,000 in 2024, and includes the optional service plan. I see our chief of police is here. Do we have questions for Matt today?
I actually have a quick question. Did you have a question? So if we don't need to implement this until 2025, what's our rationale for implementing it in 2022?
So a couple reasons. One, get ahead of the curve a little bit, right? Everyone's going to be ordering this. Part of that too is we're looking to update our fleet. And so currently we use Panasonic, which is a product that we have in our squad cars. This would allow us to upgrade both the body camera that we would be required to get, but also upgrade this in-car camera system. So it all works together. Part of it is the in-car system is going to take possibly 10 to 12 months to get. So we have to order it now so that we can start getting the ball rolling on getting that implemented. The body cameras will be a little bit early. And again, why not have them if we can get them on our officers? That way, it's just one more thing that we have, another tool in our tool belt.
So I'm assuming from a cost standpoint that this actually kind of saves us money because we don't have to refit the cars.
It would be a known expense, yeah. I mean, the new is the cameras, but also the storage, which is the most expensive component to this long-term. So this is a new cost center that the village is not currently experiencing. We are for the Panasonic, that we've had in-car cameras
For a long time.
for
Panasonic since
decades.
2014.
Yeah, a
Before
long
that,
time.
yeah.
But, so this is a new cost center for us. But I would say we're also picking up new technology in terms of managing evidence faster, and hopefully that will reduce time if we're going back and forth to the county to share information with the prosecutor's office, which is helpful. And another element, there is the in-car squad cameras will have the ability to do license plate reading, which is a technology that the village has historically been interested in. But in fact, we explored in depth doing stationary cameras at certain intersections, but postponed that due to cost. This is part of that package, so that'll come. So not only just be like one static camera, say at Green Bay 176, but this will be 5 mobile cameras throughout the community. I think that's an added tool for the community in terms of performing public safety that we have not had. So there is some new service and programmatic elements to this as well.
Great, thanks, thank you, thanks.
One thing I'd like to say also is reading this memo and having been informed by Drew in the last week. I remember reading about that about 3 years ago. That cost is about a third of what I read about 3 years ago. So this is absolutely great. This is great work from the village to actually get that pricing.
Yeah, because at January 1, we might be looking at that next price increase for whatever that might be, unless we start getting that model.
I think it's great we're getting out ahead of it so we can test run it, get really used to it before that 2025 deadline. I talked to Drew. I had some questions about the storage specifically. I had lots of questions, but I had questions for Drew about how does the statute allocate how long you have to store data, and how do we comply with that? And is there a potential increased cost associated with needing more data storage potentially? And one of the things, and I'd love to hear from you, Chief, about that, about what, how the department and the village determines what should be stored for how long. And one of the things Drew and I were talking about was whatever resolution follows, how that might come to the table for us to review. And I absolutely am interested in having a better understanding of how we actually implement this new law.
Sure. So let's start with some of the retention. So a statute requires and says how and when, where and why and how you retain this data, right? The starting point is 90 days. From there, it sort of changes in the sense of, is this related for evidence? Is this an arrest situation? Is this a complaint against an officer? Is this being retained for training purposes, right? So there's a litany of those things that said by statute is going to require us to do that. Okay? So part of the other question is, how do you maybe kind of tell what's what and this, that, and the other? So one of the features of this is a tagging program. It's an auto tagging program that we actually had included in this. So what we're trying to say is that the officer doesn't have to kind of figure out, is this an A, a B, or a C? In conjunction with our CAD system, we're going to be able to basically auto establish that on the back end of it. Okay, so that way we know, like, oh, this is a, animal complaint call, goes over here. So that kind of helps that process. So the officers and us, we can just start looking and seeing where those calls are going and dropping, right? So that helps us on the data retention side of what actually should be kept more than 90 days or not. So what happens is we start out with roughly about 2,300 gigabytes of data for the body-worn cameras. The actual fleet program with the squad, it's called the Fleet 5, that is actually unlimited storage. So we don't have to worry about anything that we're doing on the squad car side for like the amount of is going to be for our body-worn cameras and any other data that we upload. So if that's like pictures, if that's perhaps CCTV footage from another location, that's where we start getting into that 2,300 gigabytes, okay? What happens is if for some reason we start reaching that limit, where we're looking at it and we say, okay, we're at 2,000 gigabytes and we're 3 years in, we got to kind of figure out what's going on, right? One, is there a data retention issue? Or two, do we need to purchase some additional data, storage space? When I spoke with Axon today to clarify, it's roughly, at their estimation, 48 cents a gigabyte per year. And that's prorated on the year. So if we need another 1,000 gigabytes, we're looking at about 48 cents per gigabyte. So not a huge cost, which was actually probably less than I thought it was. Probably cheaper than us buying some servers and trying to store data on there ourselves. So the model seems to be there for that in that product. So.
But initially, as part of this package, though, we also don't think we're going to need
That's
storage out the
We're
gate.
not that kind of department. Our village, luckily, yes.
Yes.
Knock
So-
all the wood.
Yeah.
What,
But you also had the question about what's going to be our SOG or how
Yeah.
we're going to govern
yeah,
use and when do officers have to use it. And
Sure.
I mentioned that to Trustee Fisher that we were in the process of kind of like finalizing our SOG for that.
And part of that too is also still based in statute as well, right? That says, hey, you're doing a community caretaking event, right? We had our public safety day the other day. We're not running around wearing, recording everything there actively, right?
yeah.
Whereas we're engaged in some semblance of enforcement, right? So now we're going to activate that, right? So the statute's going to tell us when and where and why and how. Additionally, we have other agencies around us that are rolling this out right now that are experiencing it. Some departments a little longer than others. So obviously we have those as a point of contacts and point of references to help us build that policy for Lake Bluff.
I actually also have a question that I didn't ask you, Drew, and if you don't know the answer, that's okay, but I'm putting it out there. Because it is like a cooperative purchasing situation here, what's the security levels or the like confidentiality levels? Is there like crossover in this cloud that, different police departments may or may not have access to our data?
So it's all criminal justice information system certified, right? So it's CJIS compliant, right? So it's not like Nextdoor is looking at ours or anything like that, right? There are some products on the market, not body cameras, where there can be that data sharing type thing. But the only data sharing that happens is data that we share, like to the state's attorney's office, to the prosecutor's office. That's our determination on what where, when, and why, and how
Okay.
with the sharing of the data.
So this product has built-in security measures that keep it so that others can't see it, other than those we designate.
Absolutely.
And we give them the specific
Yeah.
permission for those
Keys to the
certain files.
castle.
Yes.
Good. Thank you.
It's a great question.
Are there any more questions on the board? Do we have questions online as well? Mr. Irvin?
There is one attendee in the virtual meeting. They are not raising their hand with any questions regarding this item that I can see.
Okay. So if I see no other questions, this is a roll call. Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Marquis?
Aye.
Trustee Rappin?
Aye.
Trustee Ryder?
Aye.
Trustee Ankerman?
Aye.
Trustee Fisher?
Aye.
And Trustee Hatch?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. And the motion carries. Thank you. Thank you very much, Matt. Next item is item number 15, a resolution authorizing change order number 1 for the village's fiscal year 2023 street resurfacing improvement project. Is there a motion to approve this resolution, please?
So moved.
Thank you. On March 14, 2022, the village board approved a resolution authorizing the execution of a construction contract with Peter Barker and Son Company of Lake Bluff, Illinois for the fiscal year 2023 street improvement project in the amount of $463,397.76. The bid price was below the allocated budget for the project, and it was noted at the time that staff intended to increase the amount of work to use a proportion of the remaining budget. The village then added resurfacing Ravine Avenue west of Evanston Avenue and the majority of Newman Court, as both streets were significantly impacted by recent water main work. The village also added drainage improvements to address persistent water icing on Newman Court and standing water on East Witchwood Avenue. These changes added $42,000 to the project. In accordance with the village purchasing policy, a change order of this amount requires the approval of the village board. The budgeted amount for construction and inspection services for this project was $570,000. The original contract amount was $463,397.76, and the construction engineering service agreement, $39,170, total approximately $503,000. With this change order and a corresponding change order to the construction engineering agreement, the total project cost will be approximately $550,000, so still less than $570,000. The village engineer recommends that the village board approve the change order to the construction contract with the contractor for the increase in scope during the fiscal year 2023 street resurfacing program. Questions from the board? And I see no questions. Anything online?
Nobody is raising their hand, sir.
Thank you. That will make it easy. Roll call, please.
Trustee Rappin.
Aye.
Trustee Ryder.
Aye.
Trustee Ankerman.
Aye.
Trustee Fisher.
Aye.
Trustee Hatch.
Aye.
Trustee Marquis.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you very much. Next item would be item 16, a resolution authorizing the execution of a professional service agreement with Bridge Brothers, Inc., design engineering for the Glen Avenue pedestrian bridge replacement project. Is there a motion to approve this resolution?
So moved.
A second?
Second?
Thank you. At its April 25th, 2022 meeting, the village board passed resolution 2022-27, entering into an agreement with an anonymous donor to fund the replacement of the Glen Avenue pedestrian footbridge. At the same meeting, the village board also approved resolution 2022-28, authorizing design engineering of the alignment and abutment for the new bridge. While that process has been ongoing, village staff has worked with Bob Hunter, chairman of the the ABR, to come up with a concept plan for the new bridge. At this point, the preferred location for the bridge has been established. The concept plan is complete, and the next step in the process is to have a bridge structure designed and have a design to go through review by the ABR. Village staff believes that the most efficient and cost-effective way to procure a new bridge is by contracting with a company that manufactures bridges off-site and having it delivered and installed to the project location. Following the bridge installation, the final site work and landscaping would be then completed. The village has been working with Bridge Brothers, Inc. of Atlanta, Georgia, as a preferred vendor due to Bridge Brothers' ability to customize the bridge to substantially comply with a concept plan prepared by Bob Hunter and approved by the anonymous donor. The village requested and received a quote from Bridge Brothers for the design, manufacture, and installation of the bridge. At this time, staff wishes to proceed with the design portion of the agreement only for a fee of $18,000. If the ABR approves the design, a separate resolution will be presented for the board's consideration to waive the competitive bidding process and award a contract to Bridge Brothers for the purchase and installation of a bridge. Using the donation to largely fund the bridge slightly ahead of schedule will require a future amendment to the village fiscal year 2023 budget. Are there any comments and questions to this item on the board?
I would just reiterate what we said last time, which is it's great to have a donor. And I believe this donor is picking up the $18,000 for the engineering, and we're grateful.
I would echo this comment where I feel extremely appreciative to our community to be caring for our community and to be sensitive to the aesthetics and the function of the different amenities around town. So thank you again to that person in our community.
I have a couple questions. So I was just curious if we have an estimate of what the entire project would cost, since once we contract with this Bridge Brothers for $18,000 to do the work, and do we have an idea of what the remaining portion will just because it is coming from a donor, which is excellent. We just want to make sure we stay within that budget.
Yeah, and I think, to be crystal clear, since that the village's budget number is to do this project was 3 years out, because this work needs to be done, and we had put it off for that period of time so it fit in better with the capital plan. I mean, it'd be great to do it sooner, and that's why I'm pushing this forward now at this point, and especially with the donor's money. But there are multiple elements. There's the engineering work, there is landscape architecture work of siting the bridge along with engineers, and then there's the actual construction element, and then there'll be final landscaping. But Jeff, would you please talk about what we anticipate the actual bridge product in the neighborhood for the pricing for that? And that's another reason to move is the price of steel, aluminum rate. Yeah, so go ahead.
The bridge and the engineering we've already approved for Baxter Women did the survey. That is going to total somewhere $300,000 to $325,000. There'll be additional work for pouring the abutments. It's probably going to get us to a little north of $350,000. The biggest unknown right now is we have a concept plan for landscaping, but I don't know what that's going to cost or what that will look like when we're ultimately finished reviewing it. So I think the total project will probably exceed the donor's donation, but not by, I would say, less than $100,000 more than that. But we have some control over that based on what we do with the landscaping.
Okay. So we'll kick in a little bit.
Yeah, and I think that was always, the village was going to spend we had a number of $300,000 we were using for a budget placeholder, so we knew it'd be in this ballpark. This is a bridge that is, I would say, of a design and quality that's more than the village would have probably done on its own, right? So,
and this bridge will actually respect historical features from the previous bridge as well for the community. So, in effect, I am grateful for that person to help us keep the character of the community as well.
Oh yeah, I think everybody's grateful. No one's arguing that. My other question was, at one point, when Trustee Briand was on the board, she mentioned something about trees being right in that area, on the edges of the ravine right there. Have we looked at that? Are we hoping to save those trees, and how are we kind of handling that?
So that's one of the reasons we got the LA involved landscape architect and trying to find a place that we can safely place the bridge on a location sufficient enough to support the weight, but also try to impact as few trees as possible. And tell me if I'm wrong, Jeff, but we're looking at 2 trees right now that we were looking at removing.
2 that we know. I believe it'll be more like 3 to 5 when we're done, because the crane has to pick up each section of the bridge. There'll be 2 sections, one from each side, and hoist it and put it down where it goes. And there just are a couple of trees that the crane operator will probably say that he can't put the bridge in place without impacting them. Although we did, through the alignment process, try to minimize impacts to trees. There's one tree that's about 2 feet away from the existing bridge that you can't remove the old bridge and put a new one on without taking out.
The canopy there is difficult to work within, to say the least.
Well, is that part of the landscape plan then, to replace the trees? Maybe not full grown, but to
It's-
put some trees back in then?
So yes, that's part of the plan. There is some hardscape. I mean, the idea was that is one of those niche areas in the village where a lot of community is created. If we were out there multiple times planning this project, meeting with the donor, and you just watch the number of individuals that the residents come through there and socialize and talk. You know, people are walking dogs, pushing babies, and it's a very social location. So the LA came up with these ideas of having little rooms, if you will, as you move across. And there's one of the concepts includes on the north side, but a vista with like a bench. So this may be other donor opportunities.
Okay, great, thank you, thanks, sounds great.
Thank you.
So I don't know if we're approving the contract itself tonight with bridge builders, but I just noticed some indemnification language. I'm sorry, Peter, that I didn't point this out earlier, that I'd like us to look at. Indemnification for employee claims is the thing that jumped out at me. I don't think the language is particularly clear, and I'm sorry I didn't look at this before. But it looks like it's their form contract, perhaps. I don't know. Do we want to try to edit this on the fly? I don't think it's going to change the monetary terms at all. It's just the indemnification language could be stronger for us.
I did speak with him last week, and there'll be a little negotiation on some of those terms. I think the resolution says the contract is subject to, being a form approved by the village attorney. So I think there will be a
Okay.
little back and forth on that, but we will definitely look at indemnification.
Okay, thanks, Peter. I just pass something along to you when I get a chance.
Yep. Thank you. Any other comment on the board? Thank you. So this is a roll call vote. Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Ryder,
Aye.
Trustee Ankerman,
Aye.
Trustee Fisher,
Aye.
Trustee Hatch,
Aye.
Trustee Markey,
Aye.
Trustee Rappin.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Next is item 17, an ordinance amending Title 3 of the Village of Lake Bluff Municipal Code, number of liquor licenses, and the regulation applicable to the Class Z liquor license. Is there a motion to approve this ordinance, please?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. The Village Board recently approved a special use permit to allow Hansa Coffee Roaster Limited to relocate within the same building from their 600 Walnut Avenue space in the rear to the 24 East Scranton Avenue tenant space in the front. This tenant space was previously occupied by Wisma and B-Market, both carry-out food retailers who held Class A, W, and Z liquor licenses and has been vacant since May 2022. After Village Board approval of their special use permit, Hansa requested that the village consider allowing them to serve beer and wine on premise and for retail sale, with no plan to cater events, which will require a Class B license, similar to a Class A, but for beer and wine only, and a Class Z license. The attached ordinance, as recommended by the Liquor Commissioner, adds the additional licenses in the appropriate category and amends the text of the municipal code to reflect the limitation of on-site consumption to beer and wine only for the Class B license holder. Are there any questions?
I'm just make the comment that I'm really glad to see this, that property has been utilized for not just coffee, but other drinks as well, and great to see that this will be an addition.
Yes, I will be glad as well. I will be happy to see such a service vendor, a food vendor occupy that space, because I've seen that space being very much appreciated by the residents during a concert on the green or an event on the green. And this is a real social space in our village. This is a central spot, and I'm happy that they're taking this over, as Hindsight does a fine job on Walnut today.
Drew, do you know, is there a distinction in the liquor licenses, the difference between being able to sell on premise versus being able to sell to go?
So yes, our code, this actually was created, this type of license was created for WISMA. And it gives, which you could witness, see people go in there and shopping and like buying a bottle of wine and carrying it out and taking it home to consume, but also gives them the ability to serve like by the glass if they want to pour, in the store, but even outside on the sidewalk. That's something that we've been able to get away with as a community, but it's kind of a rare license to have.
Yeah,
so
great.
But it's the same one that B Market sought and had for a period of time while they were there as well.
Thank you. Any questions? So that would be a voice vote. Anyone in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So, thank you. Next item would be item 18, an ordinance amending the Lake Bluff zoning regulations relating to fence height restrictions for businesses. Is there a motion to approve this ordinance?
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
I was nervous for a second, Peter. We don't have to approve fence
I
heights.
feel strongly about
Pretty
fences.
niche ordinance here, I think.
Dude, we could skip it and go to B Market. So Lake Bluff has different fence height requirements for residential and non-residential districts. In most residence districts, the maximum fence height for front yard is 4 feet. In non-residential districts, the maximum height is 6 feet. There are a number of exceptions in the village fence height limitation for specific special circumstances. For example, one exception allows the construction of taller fence 8 feet along the northern boundary of a sanctuary subdivision. The attached draft ordinance would allow an increased maximum fenced height to 6 feet for businesses which operate in a residential district as a non-conforming use, but only for the limited purpose of screening areas utilized for garbage, trash, and refuse disposal per section 10-4-2H. This change would allow Ragsdale on 709 Sheridan Road to construct screening for their garbage enclosure as required elsewhere by the zoning regulations. Site plan review and approval by the Architectural Board of Review would be required for any fence utilizing this exception. At the close of a public hearing to consider this text amendment on October 19th, 2022, the PCCBA voted unanimously 5-0 to recommend that the village board adopt the draft ordinance. Questions on the board? No questions on the board. Anybody online wishing to make a comment?
There is still one person participating virtually that do not appear to be raising their hand.
Thank you. It is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So the motion carries. Thank you very much. Next is item 19, is our trustees' report. Do any trustee wish to make a report tonight? Thank you. Moving on to item number 20, the consideration of the October 10th, 2022 executive session meeting minutes. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Thank you. Are there any changes? Thank you. So clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Yankoman.
Aye.
Trustee Fisher.
Aye.
Trustee Hatch.
Aye.
Trustee Markey.
Aye.
Trustee Rappin.
Aye.
Trustee Ryder.
Aye.
Thank you. Next is item number 21. That would be the executive session. May I, and so I will read that to be specific. May I have a motion to go into closed session for the purpose of discussing setting the price of selling village property and property acquisition pursuant to the Illinois Open Meeting Act, and that upon the adjournment of a closed session, this regular meeting will be deemed to automatically be adjourned by the same vote without the conduct of any further business. Any questions? This is a roll call.
Need a motion.
Motion to adjourn? No.
Motion to go into closed session.
Motion to go into closed session.
Second.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
So this is a roll call. Clerk?
Trustee Fisher.
Aye.
Trustee Hatch.
Aye.
Trustee Markey.
Aye.
Trustee Rappin.
Aye.
Trustee Ryder.
Aye.
And Trustee Yankoman.
Aye.
Thank you. So this concludes the open part of the village board meeting. Thank you to anyone in attendance, and have a great evening.
Barb, I'll call you.
Okay.
Okay, so give me